back, everybody, to another episode of Making Monsters. I'm Taylor Dahl, and this last stretch of games hasn't been the most fun in Chicago. A lot of losing, but we have seen some players that have really impressed us on the football field, and I'm here to talk about that today, bring some positive into the world, which I like to do. And with this, we're going to talk about Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard was an off-season signing that Ryan Poles, with the departure of Eddie Jackson, a fan favorite in Chicago, they needed another safety, so they go with a veteran guy, and Kevin Byard, coming from the Titans. Well, he is drafted by the Titans, coming from Philly this last year. So I'm now joined by his high school coach, Coach Corey Jarvis, at Martin Luther King Jr. High School. Is it Lithonia, Georgia? Is that how you say that?
Yes, it's Lithonia, Georgia.
Lithonia. Okay, and that's right outside Atlanta, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. So that is obviously where Kevin Byard went to school. There is a little bit of story. I do want to get into that of how he ended up there, because he was not born in Georgia, was not born in Atlanta. But before we get to that, Coach, I do want to talk about some of these numbers this year and why we want to talk about Kevin Byard. So he's played in all 13 games, which I think was a big factor in why Ryan Poles did want to bring him to Chicago anyways. He doesn't miss a lot of time. He's one of those guys that'll be on the football field, and that availability part is really important, especially in the secondary. And so there's been a lot of positive on that side, but also 99 tackles, 50 solo tackles this year, 6 passes defended, an interception, 3 tackles for loss, a QB hit, 2 forced fumbles. He's top 15 in total defense among all safeties in the NFL right now, top 8 in run defense among safeties in the NFL, top 6 in the tackling rate that PFF does, and for safeties, top 6 in pressures among safeties, and top 20 in coverage grade. So everything you want to see out of a safety is what he's been able to do. And this is also across from, we lost Jaquan Brisker, who was our other safety, who was across from him. Elijah Hicks got hurt, so now you're onto your third string safety, and Kevin Byard's just been such a role model in that room of kind of lifting up the secondary. So I do want to talk a little bit about that, but let's start from the beginning. The story of Kevin Byard. He ended up coming to Atlanta. His parents get divorced, so they move to Atlanta. They're living in a friend's basement at the time, just until she can kind of get her bearings and get things going. Kevin has an older brother and 5 younger siblings, so that is a lot to kind of handle. So he took on a very important role in the family of helping help his mom out and help raise, the siblings a little bit, help them out, clean the house, help cook dinner, do those sort of things. That leads to a lot of people having to grow up really quickly. Is that something that you noticed from Kevin when your first encounters with him?
Yes, that's exactly what I noticed. Kevin and Kevon came to me. I think Kevin was going into his 10th grade year. It was 9th grade, second semester, and Kevon was a junior, I want to say. They came in and they came to me and they said they wanted to play football. But the thing that kind of struck a nerve with me was Kevin, he was working so hard. And one day I was like, I like the way you work. You work real hard. You're a high energy guy. You're doing the extra stuff to get better. And the statement he made was, he said, well, Coach, my aspiration is to play in the NFL, that my mom would never work again. And remember when at his draft party, me and the guy who actually coached Kevin after I left his senior year, Coach Carson, I said, do you remember the statement you made to me when I first met you, or like around the time I first met you? And he said, yeah, I remember that. And I said, now you got that opportunity.
I love that. And that's what I feel like, those type of guys, the ones that have the goals that young, that early on at 14, 15 years old. I didn't know what I wanted to do at 14 years old. So for him to kind of take that right away and know he has that love for football. So let's go to that, the football side of it. Tell us the first time that you met Kevin Byard. Was it on the football field? I know he ran track also. What was that experience like the first time?
Well, I'm going to talk about the track part first, because I got a chance to coach in track first, because he came the second semester, so I got a chance to coach him in track. And the craziest thing about Kevin during track season was he was such a great athlete, and I was like, I want to find somewhere to use him. And he was so good at everything, to be honest. I was like, well, come over here and let's try the hurdles. So one day we go over like on a Monday or Tuesday, and we work over the hurdles, and then the next track meet was a Saturday, and that Saturday Kevin ended up going 14-9 over the hurdles, and I'm like, that is an athlete. I'm like, this is an athlete. I'm like, he needs to play somewhere. No, I don't care what he does. He needs to play somewhere in football. So I knew what kind of athlete he was. But then going into that his junior year or whatever, our starting quarterback got hurt.
Okay.
He broke his collarbones in camp, so Kevin had to start at quarterback for us, and he did a great job at quarterback for us. You know, he'll tell you, Coach Jarvis, wouldn't let me stay at quarterback. He wanted me to play defense. You know, I'm a defensive guy. He knows
Yeah.
I am. I'm a defensive guy, so I moved that. We actually moved him to safety, man. Then I know his senior year he ended up playing safety, corner, and wide receiver. But
Wow.
just a great athlete, so good at everything that he did. Like, you know, he was like a Swiss Army knife. Like, you could put him anywhere. He probably could have played running back. He was so could have played linebacker. He was just a great athlete.
How do you feel about that when you see the football players in live games hurdling people? Like, does it make you excited? Are you a little nervous sometimes that they're in those
I get a little nervous, seriously, because I know what the repercussion of, because I actually got flipped over on my head in college.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know the repercussions of going up in the air like that.
Yeah, we've seen a few. There's a running back for Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love, and he runs track also at Notre Dame. But every game he hurdles at least one time. But I get a little nervous every single time because I'm like, it just takes clip a leg one time, and then like who knows what happens. But let's go back to the quarterback side. So when he was playing quarterback, was he a more so running dual threat type quarterback? Is that what he kind of, as you would explain him as?
He ended up being a dual threat guy, but Kevin actually cannon for an arm. Like, he threw the ball so hard, like he broke one of our wide receiver fingers like the first time in practice. Like Charles Reynolds, he broke his finger. Like, he throws a very, very good ball, and he throws it extremely hard. So he has a cannon, but he was a dual threat guy. Like, we use him for his legs mostly.
Okay. And so when you make that transfer over to playing safety, corner, wide receiver, all three of those, did he like a certain one more? Because I know sometimes the guys like to be that wide receiver because the wide receiver has the stats, the wide receiver gets the praise, maybe more than a safety. But did he enjoy the defensive side of the ball too?
Oh, he was a ball hawk from the beginning. Like, I tell everybody, I think his junior year he ended up like 6 interceptions, 2 of them he ran back for touchdown. I knew personally that's what he was going to be. He'll tell you Coach Jarvis had been saying that since his 10th grade year. So that's what he was going to be in college. I just knew he was going to be a safety or a big corner. But because he was so physical, I kind of figured it would be safety. But then, like I said, his senior year when he moved to receiver, he was just so good at receiver too because he's special with the ball in his hand. And I know colleges had to make choices. Like, they kept calling me like, Coach, what do you think he's going to be? And I know me and Coach Evans, who was his quarterback coach, was an offensive coordinator, was like, Coach, wherever you play him at, we said the same thing. Me and Coach Evans actually talked yesterday at a recruiting fair. Coach Evans is actually the quarterback coach at Miles College in Birmingham, Alabama. And he was just like, Coach, you remember everybody calling us about Kevin? I'm like, yeah, Kevin was like, we didn't know, like, it's up to y'all. Y'all make more money than us. So y'all make that play. But I, in my heart, that I thought he was going to be a safety.
Talk about a little bit the competition in Atlanta. I live in Florida now, and Florida, Georgia, Texas, those are 3 of the states that you talk about the high school recruiting being so good because there's just so much talent coming out of those states, and other states it happens too, but those are some of the focus. So those years when he was playing high school football, tell us a little bit about those seasons, the competition he was going up against during that time frame, and some of those things that you're keeping an eye out on.
Well, I know his first year we were still on the cycle of a 2-year deal, and I think his 10th and 11th grade year we were on that cycle. So he didn't get a chance to play against all the bigger schools, but we were in the largest classification. I know that we got a chance to play against Southwest DeKalb, and they were ranked number 1 in the state at the time when we played them his junior year, and we ended up upsetting them. We beat them like 14-9, and about that is we actually made up a blitz for Kevin that game during the game, and he actually made on the play, and that was the ball game. They went for it like on 4th down and 2, and we ended up making a stop on that play. So that was a huge ball game. His first game, though, starting at quarterback, his 10th grade year we played North Cobb, and we were ranked number 1 at the time, and we ended up losing on the last second field goal. Matt Brown was our starting running back that year. Matt played in the NFL as well with the Redskins and a couple of teams as well. But Matt had a great game that game. Kevin had a great game, but he threw an interception like late in the game, and it ended up hurting us because they ended up kicking a field goal with no time left on the clock, and they beat us. That hurt because, like I said, we were ranked number 1 at the time in the state in 5A.
Yeah, it's the upsets you don't ever want. That 14-9 game sounds like a lot of Chicago football. It's like the defensive games where at the end I'm like, no one really. It takes forever for someone to score. I personally, growing up a Bears fan, love those type of games. I love defensive games. It's just kind of what when you love Brian Urlachers and Lance Briggs and all of
Right.
those guys. It's kind of what you enjoy. So it is fun for me to see guys like Kevin Byard come in here and honestly, coach, this offseason there were people critical because he had a little bit of a down season last year in Philly, but I feel like it was kind of the Philly secondary as a whole had a rough year. And then I was personally really excited. I loved what Kevin Byard did in Tennessee. I like how the way he plays with this intensity. I also heard so many good things about his leadership. And you're already seeing that with some of these young defensive backs we have in Chicago. So was that something you saw kind of grow through his time in high school too, becoming a leader, especially playing so many positions?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Kevin was he's a natural leader to me. To watch him flourish in the NFL the way he's done, like I saw it in high school. Like I said, starting from his ninth grade to his senior year. Like his senior year, he was team captain. Did great things that year. They had our quarterback was broke the state record in passing. We had a receiver break the state record in passing. But the thing that I loved about Kevin was it wasn't about him type deal. He didn't make it about him. He's always been one of those guys who, he played his role and he did everything that he was asked, that was asked of him rather. Just a great kid, and like I said, no selfish bone in his body. Like he's just one of those great guys that you kind of cheer for.
One of the articles I read about him when he was kind of talking about his family and growing up and everything, and he mentioned you in this article and said you were like a father figure to him. And so for you, I think that's important because I know a lot of these guys, and that's what's so important and cool about the jobs that you guys have as high school coaches and being able to obviously coach football. It's fun, but a lot of these guys don't have their fathers around or father figures around, and you can become that for them and kind of help mold them through those high school years. So how was that to kind of be able to be that person for so many people, especially like someone Kevin Byard who's now finding so much success in the NFL?
Like Kevin, he's one of those kids. Like it's easy to be the father figure for him because like he's such a great kid. He's such a great kid, a great young man now, of course. But him and Kevon were like just great additions to our program. To be honest, to add a great athlete, of course, is always a plus. But to add a great person, and then mom was so helpful. Like mom cooked us like Sunday meals for our Sunday meetings, and it was just a blessing to have them come into our family at ML King at the time. Those kids are like, some of the kids that like we want to see every time, like be successful. I just know Kevon's doing real well, Kevin's doing real well, little brothers and sisters they're doing well, and it's a testament on his mom, but also it's a testament on Kevin and Kevon how they help their siblings as well.
It definitely is. I mean, there's different routes you can go in those type of situations, and it clearly they chose the one that was best for their family, best for themselves, and it's really good to see those stories shine in these players. You touched a little bit on the recruiting side of things of when he was, leaving high school, getting ready to go to college. What was that like for him? Because I know that in that area, I think he was like a 2-3 star coming out, but there were still several schools in Western Kentucky. I know that, a few of the other schools, I think it was Western Kentucky, Kentucky, Southern Miss were some of the other schools that offered him some different opportunities to come play football with them. So what was that like though, kind of going through that with Kevin and him making that decision of where he wanted to continue his football career?
Well, with Kevin, like I said, because he was so good at receiver as well, a lot of them didn't know where they wanted to play him at. And I know when he went to Kentucky on a visit, I know another one of our receivers at the time, DeMarco Robinson, who ended up going to Kentucky, they went. And I know that they were talking about moving Kevin to receiver. And I think Kevin was kind of debating what he wanted to play receiver or play defensive back in college. And when Middle Tennessee came in late and offered him, and I know Coach them, they loved him. Coach Bobby them loved him. Oh my God, they love Kevin as a defensive back. I think that kind of sold him. Like he wanted to go somewhere where they really truly wanted him, and they knew what him to do. And that I think that kind of solidified where he was going to go to school.
Do you think that looking back, it was the best path in choosing the defensive backside, or do you think he still would have been just as successful at the wide receiver side?
I think he would have been successful at wide receiver, but I know that, you talking about an all pro. You talking
Yeah.
about hard, because
Yeah.
he's such a great defensive back. And I just remember like his junior year when he played pretty much defensive back and played some quarterback. Um, he was just so good. Like I knew that was going to be his path in my heart. So I think he probably made the best choice for himself.
Let's go back because you mentioned something about draft day too. So you were in the room with him on draft day?
Yes, I was.
Well, tell us about that moment. I know it's exciting for him, exciting for the family. I know in the article I read too, the first thing he wanted to do was buy his mom a house so that she didn't have to worry about that, which is obviously one of the most selfless things you can think of. And it just shows the type of person he is. But tell us about that moment and like that draft moment for Kevin Byard.
Oh wow! I know the living room was packed, and it was like his family. It was all his coaches and former coaches in the living room, and just to be a part of that moment, to hear his name called, it was special. Like I don't even know how to describe it because it's a surreal moment. Because that was my first kid getting drafted. Like I had kids who went as free agents. I had never had a kid get drafted, and that was like a great moment for me to witness it, number one, and be a part of it, number two, because like he made sure that we were a part of it. Like I got the picture of him getting drafted like on my desk in my office. I'm not in my office right now because I don't get a signal, so that's why I can't show it to you. But I have a picture of him right now when he got drafted on my desk, and it was just a great moment. Me, Coach Carson, Coach Hood, and a couple other our coaches, like we took a picture with him, and him and Kevon, just like I said, very very special moment.
Have you talked to him since he's been in Chicago now?
I talked to him right when it happened. Right when it
Okay.
happened. I haven't talked to him during the season. I was actually going to reach out to him and tell him this podcast or whatever, and see, get a chance to see it though.
How were his feelings with that? Because I know like when you go from a team that Chicago's had this history of a lot of losing recently, but they are a defensive minded team. So I do think sometimes defensive players enjoy coming over here and kind of knowing that we embrace that side of the ball. What were his thoughts, feelings when he did find out he was coming to Chicago?
Oh, he was excited. He was excited. From last year because I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. Forgive me. I know
Okay.
you're Cowboy fan. I messed with him. I said, I can't cheer for your team anymore. I can't cheer for the Eagles. So when he went to the bench, the conversation was, now I can cheer for you again. So excited to get a chance to go to Chicago. I think I think that defensive point did in the back of his mind. So I think that added to this excitement for him to go to somewhere that was a defensive-minded team.
Yeah, I always joke about that because I always say that if I have a boy and the boy ends up going to the NFL and he ends up getting drafted by the Packers, like what do I do? Because I don't know. Like I guess you choose your son, but there's so much when you don't like a team, you don't like a team. Coach, final one before I let you go, just because I do know, like I said, we've talked about the leadership, we've talked about kind of having to grow up quick and figuring out things in that light. But since he's been in Chicago and being able to have this season so far that he has, even though the team doesn't have the record you want, when you're watching him play, and this is something we talked a lot about in this offseason because Coach Eberflus and Eric Washington kind of wanted to make it to where the safeties weren't a true free safety, strong safety. They wanted a little more free, open. That way they can just play to their strengths. How much, just from you watching Kevin this year, how much does that benefit him just being able to kind of do what he does best?
Well, anytime that you can put a person in a position where they're doing what they're doing best, that's always a positive. And watch Kevin, like he's excelled. Like I watched the Commanders game, and I watched last week's ball game. I watched him y'all play the Packers early this year. He just plays. He playing so well, and like to hear his stats, I didn't know his stats were that good. I knew he was playing well, but like it's amazing just to watch that young man go out there and excel. And I know he's enjoying what he does, and I know Mom looking down on him right now, smiling. So, just great feeling to see him still have success in the league.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate it. I know I do these podcasts because I feel like sometimes we forget that they're people beyond football. We get so obsessed with the football side of things and when the wins and losses and all of this stuff, but there's really cool stories behind these players, and their paths are all different to how they get to the NFL. So it's really fun to learn that. So I appreciate you hopping on and sharing your story with Kevin Byard, because it's been really fun to cheer for him this season, and I know for you it is too.
Yes, always. And thank you for having me.
No problem. You have a good one, Coach. Thanks so much. Happy holidays.
You too. Same to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.